Welcome to Life by Design, episode 388. Welcome to Life by Design. I'm your host, Dr. Jamie Richards, and I'm joined today by my colleague, Dr. Cratio Jug.
Nice to be here, as always.
Yes, we are creators of Life by Design with many locations worldwide. Each week on the show, as usual, discuss the principles and the practice of Life by Design. Today, we're talking about comparing yourself to others. Now, most people, when they hear that, their initial reaction most likely is, right, we shouldn't compare ourselves to others. And yet, our position, as per normal, is in opposition to what most people probably think, and that's that we should compare ourselves to others. Now, there's some context, and that's what today's episode is about. The point is, if you listen through to the end of today's episode, understanding this concept could be a massive shift in the way that you think and approach, just the general idea of a judgment and comparison. I think right now, more than ever, it's a great time to have this conversation, Krisha. So why don't you give some context to this, and then we can talk about some specifics.
Yeah. So, listen, this is the most important part of the podcast here, and then we'll get into the specifics later. But it's not that, you should or you shouldn't. You don't have a choice, right?
Right.
The way that your brain is wired is comparison and contrasting is actually how we learn. It's how concepts are formed, right? It's what our children, literally, the way that children learn the difference between a table and a chair is they will stare at enough tables. You'll call it a table, and they'll see the differences between a table and a chair, right? And I know this is a far way away from comparing yourself to other people, but that's the start of it. The whole point is anytime, you're not broken, like your brain. And I think this is where a lot of our this is just my personal opinion, but I think a lot of our mental issues today are actually created by humans, attacking, the functions of the brain. Well, it shouldn't work like that. Well, I'm sorry to break the news to you. It does work like that, right? That's the reality. A is A. That's the reality of the situation, right? So instead of thinking that certain parts of you are broken or evil or wrong, maybe we should figure out how they actually work, and then understand that this is just normal functioning for my brain. But then the issue with comparison, because I think incorrect comparison is harmful to your self-esteem. We're not here to slam the method of comparison. That's how our brain works. But we are going to talk about, setting a realistic standard by which to compare yourself to.
So let's talk about that. When you say standard, why don't you give a definition so people understand what that actually means?
Sure. So now, I'm a young aspiring, let's talk about the guitar because I'm serious about practicing the guitar now. So I'm going to compare myself, to my favorite guitar player, Trey from Fish. And I'm gonna work hard, and I'm always gonna be staring at Trey, and I'm gonna feel like a failure, because I'm not Trey. But the context here is, he's got different anatomy than I do. His fingers are much longer. He grew up in a certain environment. He's been playing guitar for 45 years of his life compared to my meager, 10 months that I've been actually practicing this instrument. So the standard by which I'm comparing myself to is unrealistic, right? Most people, when they compare themselves to other people, know nothing about those other people. They don't know the background. They don't know the context. They don't know the story. And yet, it's like trying to be a basketball player and saying, well, I'm going to be LeBron James when I'm like a 5'11" white dude with no athletic ability compared to somebody like LeBron James. It ain't ever going to happen. So using that as a comparison for myself is a complete disaster, right? Whereas if I set the right target and the right motivation and the correct standard, I'm actually going to be motivated and excited to continue to pursue this goal.
Well, and if you look to say, your standard or your goal or your gold standard, I guess we'll call it in this case, Trey, I think that the value in that, and this is where for me, I said in the pre-show, if I didn't have these role models or people who are really excelling in certain areas that interested me, if I didn't have those, I wouldn't know what's even possible. And I think for a child or for someone who's, trying to tackle some type of either skill or process, if you can approach it from seeing that for that, right? Somebody who has accomplished it, given, whatever their circumstances are, it's possible. Now, I may have to accept that I'm not going to accomplish that or in the same time frame. Again, there's some specifics that we need to be realistic about.
But that's the point.
That's the standard, right? And that's the context here is, yes, I may never slam dunk a basketball anymore. There was a day, back in, university and when I was training that it was close. I was right there. And yet, seeing people do it around me or, at a professional level, that is what pushed me. Oh, it can be done. I can do it. Here's how I'm going to focus my training. Here's how I'm going to, work harder, work better. And the outcome of that, because I was willing to judge myself in comparison to other people, is I continued to grow. And although I may never have accomplished that or to that degree, if I look now and say, well, what would have been the difference had I not done that? Well, would I have given up? Would I have not pushed myself? And you look at those two paths, you end up far closer to the gold standard by approaching it this way than you do the other way. And as you alluded to, the development of our self-esteem is really the outcome of constantly accomplishing these goals that we set out to do. So I think the problem, as you noted, is the standard. And also, Croatia, maybe you can speak to this. The standard, yes, but also the emotional response to that standard. Right? I don't know if that's the right language I'm using there, but you could have a standard that's realistic, but your response to that standard could still be ultra negative.
100%. Yeah. So there's a couple of really interesting details there that you said. I don't even know if you're aware of it. Number one, you were really clear on what you wanted to get, right? So the goal was never to be Dominique Wilkins or Michael Jordan, like doing like dunks from the free throw line. The goal was to dunk a basketball.
Right.
So that was a really personalized goal. It was never I was going to be this person or I was jealous of this person because they have these attributes that I don't have.
Right.
Your frame of mind was, look at how amazing, like they're flying, and if I continue to watch that, I will have the belief in myself, use it more as motivation than as criticism, right? It's the same thing for me. Like when I look at Trey, I'm like, man, it would, that's the aspiration.
Right.
That's what I'm striving towards, but I'm not a failure if I don't get there. Right. So I think the issue, and this is something that we've covered ad nauseum, is you're clear on what you want and how you're looking at these people as a windshield versus somebody who's like, I want to be that person.
Right.
Like, yes. There's the lack of clarity. And the other thing is, you found joy in actually doing that. Like it was fun for you to train to learn how to dunk a basketball, just like it's fun for me to play the guitar and try to get closer. Right. I just enjoy the act of doing it. And then, your mental framework and what you've taught yourself and what we were just talking about, what we're trying to teach our children, since we are the dads and we need to beat our children every time we play them at anything is to,
so true.
is to love, is to, become comfortable with loss. Because I guarantee you, if we just look at every human, doesn't matter if we take the number one human in the world, we all have more losses than wins.
Yes.
That's just the way that life works. So we need to be okay and understand that most of the things that we do, we're going to fail at. And we just need to be comfortable and accepting of all those things.
That's one of the things I loved about The Last Dance. People who watch the Netflix documentary with Michael Jordan and his history was so good. And again, being a kid who grew up during those times and I got goosebumps talking about it. I wasn't even a Bulls fan. I was a Pistons fan the Bulls and Pistons hate each other, but I love Jordan. And that's just, I guess for me, I always gravitate towards great players like Tiger Woods in golf, Wayne Gretzky in hockey, Michael Jordan. This is just always who I wanted to watch. And just listening to him, whether it was not making his high school team or getting beat endlessly by his brother, he said, if I didn't get beat over and over and over again by my brother, I wouldn't be the player that I became today. And I think for our kids, in a kind way, for sure, I love playing sports with my kids. Andy especially is at that age now where we play and she's learning what sportsmanship means because she's constantly getting beat. And I'm totally happy with that. And, occasionally we're playing bocce ball the other day. She beat me. And, guess how excited she was that she beat me. In fact, Gracia, I'll tell you this story and then I'll pass it back to you to finish up the show. I think that she was going to win because of something she did she had cheated to win. And I said to her, so, here's your opportunity. I said, you can win. I said, I'll let you do that, but I need you to understand that's actually cheating. Do you want to win by cheating or would you like to actually beat me by playing the same roles that I played? And so I gave her the choice. I was curious to see what she would do. And so she actually took the points away and went back. And when she eventually beat me that day, she was beyond excited. She was running around, she's screaming, she's high-fiving. And so, again, that felt really good to me that she made that choice, but also knowing that, we're setting a standard for her to continue to look towards, hopefully in all areas, not just sports and athletics.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. I think so. I mean, just to wrap it up, I think the most important thing to take away is that, I mean, listen, there are some people the vast minority of people that have some trouble with mental processing for whatever reason. But for the vast majority of us, the way that our brains work and what our minds focus on, the mental processes that we have, I don't know why our culture is trying to beat these things out of us, right? You don't judge people. Well, if I didn't judge people, then I wouldn't know who to hire and, who to marry and where to live. And I'd have no life at all, right? So the fact that my brain judges and does these things, it's not broken. That's the way that it's supposed to be. Yeah. The issue is, it's my life and it's your life. And you have to figure these things out, how they work, but set the goals and standards based on what you want for your life.
Yeah. I think it's good. It's the whole context, right? Is that this comparison and judgment, same thing with the whole conversation around sacrifice, they've been set as morally good actions for people. And so, we're constantly sacrificing and, looking negatively at ourselves if we're comparing ourselves with somebody else. And yet, these two concepts alone are pivotal in somebody essentially being ultra successful and happy and not sacrificing the things that they want in their life and being okay with the fact that, it's okay to judge other people. Nobody's saying you have to, be hateful. Nobody's saying you have to, that's going to lead to anything negative. We naturally judge. And I think that's the take home, Cratio. And you said it right from the start, is it's not that we decide whether we're going to judge or not. It's the fact that we already do. And so to negate that is negating something that is just a normal process for our brain. And that's what ends up leading to the process. So it's, giving yourself some context, giving yourself a standard that you can shoot for, and understanding, what it means to judge something else and where that fits into the larger scheme of things.
Yep, totally agree.
Awesome. Guys, go to the show notes, lifebydesign.com/podcast. We've got the 30-day challenge you can take with Cratio for the next 30 days. It's wonderful. And you can download the Think by Design manual, which is a great tool and a great read for sure. Thank you so much for joining the drive to 1 million families worldwide living life by design.